If we were all affected by a problem, wouldn't we want to have it solved? Yes, right. If so, then why is it such a struggle for us to communicate about the issues we face? Why is it so difficult to conduct thoughtful discussions about ways to create solutions? A concrete example of what I'm talking about can be applied to a problem that I endure in my daily life. That problem is the stress high school students face. I can say as a high school student in today's day and age, my peers and I are overwhelmingly stressed. We stress about how we'll do on tests, and even immediately after taking one, we're already worried about the grade we'll receive. We stress about how much homework we're going to get on a given day and how late into the night, or early into the morning, should I say, we'll stay up to complete it. 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. maybe? I think my peers can agree. There's a lot on our minds, and we would like things to be less overwhelming. But I also know that the adults at the school, so the teachers, counselors, and administrators, are aware of this, and they too would like to see the students they oversee feel less stressed. And there are actions being implemented that work towards this goal. My teachers remind me about the importance of taking care of my well-being. The school provides resources such as counseling and meditation sessions. Yet I find it really intriguing how, even though all parties affected by the problem, so the students and adults, not only acknowledge the issue, but also both desire solutions, they haven't really talked about it together. I mean, my friends discuss our stress among ourselves all the time. And I've heard about faculty meetings where student stress is brought up, but I actually haven't heard about or seen a group of students actually meet with a group of adults to talk about the challenge. Even though we all acknowledge the same issue, why is there a break in communication? But there's more than just a lack of dialogue. There's also a divide between the two sides. For some reason, it feels like that the students and adults have just split off into their own separate camps and gone their own separate ways. It's like we can't work together. And for my side, the students, we see the other side as opposition to an extent. To explain what I mean, I need to bring up social media. Ever since I entered high school, I recall opening Instagram and seeing countless times posts created by students sharing how they feel not enough is being done to help them feel less stressed. I've heard students share how they feel their voices are not being heard, and I've read criticism targeted towards adults for not prioritizing the issue enough. However, that's just all the perspective of a student. I wonder, how do the adults feel? What is a teacher thinking when they see a student stressed out over a test and that student states how they were up until 1 a.m. to study? Or in general, how do the adults feel when they see the ones they're trying to help? The ones they say to, we want you to succeed, antagonize them in such a manner on social media. But was this divide inevitable? Was it destined to happen that students and adults just simply can't work together to solve a problem they're affected by? I don't believe so. Alternatively, I see a way for this divide to be closed and for a path towards a solution to be created. It can be done by doing this. What if students and adults just simply try to come together and hear where each side was coming from? So students could hear about factors the adults had to consider in their decision making, and adults could hear about changes the students would like to see. In short, we just simply put ourselves in someone else's shoes. And fortunately, putting ourselves in someone else's shoes isn't a foreign concept. It's something we've been familiar with since we're young, but we don't necessarily go about our daily lives living out its meaning. It's not exactly the first method we think of when approached with a problem. More like one of our last. I mean, we may try to be considerate of someone else's viewpoint when trying to de-escalate a heated argument, but beyond that, our applications are limited. However, I think putting ourselves in someone else's shoes is something we're all more than capable of doing. It's something we don't practice enough of. To take it a step further, I believe we can be considerate of someone else's perspectives when determining the direction our society heads. I believe we can create meaningful change by simply considering each other's perspectives. You might be thinking, why should I care about someone else's viewpoint? Why should I care about someone else's opinion, especially if I know I'm just going to completely disagree with what someone has to say? And how could this actually lead to meaningful change? Well, that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. To start off, allow me to pose this question. How well do you know the experiences your peers have undergone? Since we're using the example of student stress, let's bring up something that stress affects a person's mental health. Maybe you're not aware that the stress of school has taken such a toll on a friend that their mental health is not in a good place. And when you see them at school, they might smile and seem okay, and when you ask them how they're doing, they might say they're doing it fine, but in reality, that's just all a facade. And outside of school, it could be a completely different story. Or even if you're aware that your friend is going through some hard times with their mental health, how well do you know the full extent of their challenges? What you see at school could just be a small fragment of what they're really going through. And sure, we can do things to educate ourselves about handling mental health issues. We can read about the problem all we want, maybe sprinkle in a couple YouTube videos, but while those actions are great, they're lacking one thing. They're lacking a human connection. They don't get that connection we would get if we took the time to listen to someone's story. But on the other hand, if we actually attempt to gain a personal narrative and try to comprehend the emotional toll a problem has on another person, that's where we'll get that connection we would be missing if we only read or watched videos about an issue. I think we'll only truly know how impactful a problem is if we attempt to see the impact through the lens of someone who's had to experience it. Our experiences, however, are influenced by the time when we endured them. Sure, we may go through the same experience, such as being a high school student, but a lot has changed since some of us were last behind a desk in the classroom listening to a teacher. While there are obvious differences, such as the increased utilization of technology, there's also similarities, such as AP classes. Yet, for a student like me, there's what feels like an increased emphasis on these classes. I feel this pressure to take a large load of these classes, and even if taking such a heavy workload may not be the best idea, I still do it anyway. And you might not have felt this pressure when you were last in my position. I mean, I've heard adults who graduated high school long ago ask me, what's the deal with AP classes and students nowadays? And those same adults make statements such as, I took none to a couple AP classes, but I still got a great college education and got a good, secure job. But circumstances have changed. The circumstances which shapes a person's high school experience has changed over time, and those who are going through high school at a given moment, their interpretations of the situation could be different. So while the stakes to take AP classes might not have been so high for you when you were in high school, but they are for me. And maybe even after hearing what I just said, the high school experience if you come back today, and the high school experience may not be what you recognize today. That'll go to the same for me as well. After I leave high school, I don't know how the circumstances will change. As far as I know, the stress and burdens I feel could be even harder or maybe lighter for someone else tomorrow. Because we had our experiences at different times, even if it was one where we all go through, our interpretations are different. I think it's important we acknowledge this. But this is where considering other perspectives can be put into play. By looking at a problem from someone else's viewpoint, we can gain a broader grasp of that issue. That can help us gain a deeper understanding. So whether it be gaining a deeper understanding of why students feel so much pressure to take AP classes, or understanding a friend's struggles with their mental health, or understanding the reasoning behind a certain decision the adults made, there's a lot to be learned. And this all can be accomplished if we just simply are considerate of someone else's viewpoint. But of course, considering someone else's perspective is easier said than done. We can listen, but not actually acknowledge what someone has to say. And face it, we're biased. We don't like hearing opinions which conflict with our own. And sometimes we just don't want to hear any outside feedback and only want to listen to our own thoughts. And that's just the problem of just listening. We had to be willing to hold conversations to listen, and there are many reasons we may not want to do so. It kind of ties back to the question I asked in the beginning. Why is it so hard to have discussions about the problems we're affected by? Why is it so difficult for students and adults to have a conversation about the stress students face? I think part of the answer is that we have ideas we would like to share. We have things we want to say, but we feel like no one is there to listen to us. We feel like we're ignored. And then so if we're being denied the opportunity to speak, why should we allow someone else to share what they have to say? Why should we give them the mic? On the other hand, it could just be the other way around, and we as people need to be better listeners. We need to be willing to be an audience member for someone else so they can become an audience member for us. Because ultimately, they have things they want to share too, and so do we. We all have some things we want to say, but maybe we just need to be given the opportunity, and someone else just needs someone to give them that opportunity as well. All these actions will need to be curbed if we're going to create change. It's going to be difficult to rewire ourselves to do this, but we can do it. But if these actions can be curbed, the possibilities for action are endless. The possibilities to create change are endless. Saying this, let's actually take action. Let's acknowledge while we hold different opinions, we're united by a more important goal. Let's acknowledge that we have the same intentions here and that we all want to make the high school experience less stressful. And even if you had to work with someone who may not have the same intentions or ideas as your own, take the time to understand them so you can move forward together. We can have a high school student succeed without sacrificing their emotional and mental well-being. But making the life of a high school student less stressful is really just the tip of the iceberg. How about we apply this concept of putting ourselves in someone else's shoes to a global societal threat such as climate change? Really, any issue you can name that this concept can be applied to. And there are so many people out there in the world, whether it be your neighborhood, city, county, state, country, or even globally, that is just as passionate about the problems you care about. They desire a solution as much as you do, but how they're affected by that problem could be different from your own. For example, I can care about climate change all at once, but someone on the other side of the country where I live could be affected differently. For me, I've experienced wildfires, but I don't know what it's like to know a hurricane will come by and hit your house. Or even globally, someone on the other side of the world could be affected by climate change in ways I haven't seen. But if we take the necessary steps, we can learn from each other. We can gain insight from our experiences and gain different ideas. And that insight and those ideas we gain can help us create solutions which are inclusive of everyone's experiences. In the grand scheme of things, we can create a brighter future where someone knows their ideas were actually valued and acknowledged in the design process. And this is a future that doesn't have to wait. It can be created now. This step of just being considerate of someone else's perspectives, we can all start doing today. Ultimately, it's about making the world a better place for all. Solving the issues that have lingered in our society for so long is a daunting, larger-than-life task. Luckily, the world is full of like-minded people that share the same visions for a brighter future as your own. But do they share the same ideas for how to convert those visions into reality as well? I want you to individually ask yourself this. Am I willing to work with someone whose perspective potentially conflicts with mine in order to create a solution for a problem we both desire to end? Once again, listening to someone's perspective is one action. Actually acknowledging it and regarding it as an asset, even if it contrasts with your own, is another. Thank you.